Welcome to the Disinfo Detox, where media literacy meets the headlines. We are the Media Literacy Wrecking Crew. I'm Nolan Higdon, and joining me as always, our resident philosopher, Dickey. And we're also joined by Sydney Sullivan.
Hey there, detoxers.
I want to thank you so much for tuning in. And as a reminder, if you want to support the show, please click that Patreon link in the description. You can become a subscriber, get access to exclusive content, get early access to other content. Really hope you'll click that link and join. If you don't have bucks in your pocket to join right now, no big deal. Please like, share, follow, comment. It really helps get the show to more people. But let's get at it. Sydney, we'll go ahead and start with you. You and Dickey, we're going to talk about a South Park episode that I have to
Yeah,
admit I didn't watch. But tell us about it.
it's okay. You can be as shocked as other people when we explain it. South Park really comes into the play with season 27's premiere of Sermon on the Mount. It takes very direct aim at Trump and media censorship overall, with what a lot of people online are saying it's most provocative satire in years. It's Trump climbing into bed with Satan. It's a naked puppet wandering the desert. Their episode blends surreal humor with sharp political commentary on power, on ego, on control. It also critiques Paramount Global, where the episode is housed, and the episode mirrors Trump's real life settlement with the company and weaves in threats towards CBS and the late night show. And it's really just a parody between Trump's lawsuits and corporate compliance. It had over 6 million views, I believe, within 3 days. And it
Wow.
became one of the show's biggest premiere in almost over 2 decades now. So I think we could get started talking about it. Some of the things, maybe Nolan, if you have questions, and Dickey, maybe your thoughts on it as well when you first watched it.
Yeah, I'd be curious to hear, and I guess we could toss this to Dickey first. But like for folks who haven't watched it, like me, give us an example. What was some of like the scenery and social commentary, some that stood out?
Yeah, I mean, like I haven't watched a lot of South Park and like historically I've it's been a while and so it was yeah, I mean it's its own show. I don't know if it's totally my sense of humor, but I will say that there was a big joke. The big jokes that Cindy mentioned was, Trump is in bed with Satan, who I think should have been portrayed by Benjamin Netanyahu, but that's, an aside. And then the other big joke was that Trump has a micro penis.
Mhm.
And, I wish that that was kind of I think there's going to be a second episode. We'll see if they go a little bit more in depth. I wish the joke went a little further than that. Like it was, and I guess there's some stuff about some critique on separation of church and state in like schools, and then there was, oh yeah, there was a like this pendulum that swings from woke to anti woke. Like one of the characters, Cartman, was really like he loves NPR because it's sort of like a hate listen that he he loves to like hear liberals complain, but then Trump like canceled it and he was really sad and he was like woke is dead. And so I'm like, oh, is that it's like we're either woke or we're not woke, and like both have benefits and not so great sides to it. Um, but yeah, there was a lot of focus on the micro penis, and I guess that's just my own kind of critique. Would be that I wish that it was very much like boys kind of
Mhm.
compare, like compare, like having a dick measuring contest. So that was like I kind of got a little underwhelmed. I think there were like the woke not woke kind of duality was interesting. The sort of the hypocrisy of the Trump administration at once wanting to end wokeness, but in ending wokeness kind of creates another type of woke.
Mm.
um but like overall, one thing, like, so yeah, like I said, I kind of fell out of the episode when I got a little sick of the dick joke, but I even though my last name is Dickey, I've just maybe heard it too much. But no, I really, when I was reflecting on the episode, I really thought, like, even though this being, in this country, it can be heartbreaking, it can be very frustrating. Like, I am so grateful that we have freedom of speech and freedom of
Mhm.
expression, because like this type of show would not exist in another country. And even though I found it a little dumb and juvenile at times, it was like, I don't know. Yeah. I'm happy. I'm thankful that culturally we can have these kind of discussions. And yeah, and those are my thoughts. There was some. I had another. I kind of was trying to do a media literacy practice on it, and just thinking about like how controversy kind of sells. And at the end of the day, the Paramount Skydance merger, it did go through. However, this episode was delayed by a few weeks, I think. But like, yeah, like I think at the end of the day, Paramount Global can really cash in on the spectacle. The South Park creators, they get to be the edgy outsider. Ratings go up for Comedy Central, and everyone kind of wins at the end of the day. So I don't know. Those were kind of my thoughts that I had after watching the episode.
Yeah, absolutely. And the media literacy moment for the day, I'll touch a little bit more on like the who of like who's responsible for creation and like why that matters, because I do think that's such an important point. But to your point about like the jokes too, I think there are some jokes that like I also haven't like watched South Park traditionally, but that when I got online, that were kind of like unveiled a little bit more for me. Like for example, people online essentially were like, oh, well, it's fine that they're like saying the president, right? They're saying, oh, it's the president of South Park. And they're like, no, 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 no. They're using his name. And they're like, oh, well, that's fine because it's a caricature, right? They're like, no, 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 no. Like they're using his face. And they're like, well, that's fine. Like, and whose voice did they give him? And then you go back and you learn that the voice that they give Trump was actually the voice that they used to use for Saddam Hussein back in the show. And so there's all of these kind of like hidden moments that you're like, oh, what did they do? What did they use? What choice did they make? And I think there's just like so many choices as a creator that I was starting to realize just because other people online were unpacking it and really starting to take like a deep dive in. And so similarly to you, Dickey, I did feel that way at first. And then I was like, oh, there's more to this than I feel like is happening.
Yeah.
Which is kind of crazy.
You know what? I'll say that one of the things, just from reading the headlines and hearing your all's description of it, one of the things I thought about when Colbert was announced that the Colbert's Late Show was going to be canceled, I was thinking about kind of how outdated and critical I've been of late shows for the last like 10 or 15 years. And big part of it is, and I don't know if you guys are even old enough to remember this, but comedians on TV used to be like George Carlin or Roseanne Barr or Richard Pryor, and they didn't fit comfortably in any right or blue box. They were just like edgy. And so when they were on a show like Conan or something, you never knew what they were going to say. Where I feel like today's comedy is mostly like the banal laugh. If it's a left audience, blah, 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 Trump, people laugh, blah, 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 Biden, people on the right laugh. Like it seems like this South Park episode transcended that in a mix of offense and different political opinions, although Trump seems to be the main punching bag of the moment. So I'll still check it out though, nonetheless, even if it's late. All right, better late than never. Let's shift gears and talk about some of the news media politics. This is sort of a Epstein story, but I think it's a great illustration of something we talk a lot about in the news literacy space, which is there's different media ecosystems, and people willingly or unwillingly kind of lock themselves into it. And I say willingly because often we can choose kind of what platform we use. You can choose if you want to use Truth Social and get more right-wing stuff, or Blue Sky and get more left-wing stuff. You can choose Fox or MSNBC. But the algorithm also plays a big role in what you see and don't see as well. And the Epstein story obviously continues. One of the things Donald Trump's administration has tried to do is deflect to this argument that President Barack Obama had politicized intelligence after the 2016 election. And they're saying it borders on criminality, as if he's meddling in the election. There's a lot to say about Russiagate. I don't think we want to get into it here today, but suffice it to say, the evidence that was shown was way overblown. We're talking about a handful of memes and posts online that Democrats try to hang their hat on as fixing the election. But having said that, there was real evidence of outside actors trying to mess in the election. So you have to kind of walk and chew gum, and then there's so many side nonsensical stories. But anyways, Trump was trying to deflect with that. And what's really interesting is Fox just kind of runs with the ball. Fox News mentioned Obama more than Epstein every single day for the week between July 18th and 23rd. Fox mentioned Obama 445 times in comparison to 127 mentions for Epstein.
Mm.
But then you go over to, CNN mentions Epstein 1,400 times. That's 11 times more than Fox. MSNBC had almost 2,000 mentions of it. And like I said, Fox barely mentions this stuff at all. And so it's sort of, I thought I want to cover it here because I think it's interesting that for a lot of us, myself included, who've been following the news media recently, it feels like the news media is cooking Trump. They're forcing Trump to wrestle with questions, maybe have evidence come out. But boy, if you're in one of these right-wing ecosystems, that's not the impression you have. It looks like the walls are caving in on Obama, and the Epstein thing is like a footnote. So I don't know. Thinking about media literacy, what do you make of that, Sydney?
Yeah, I mean, algorithms, they are just so fascinating to me. And I was actually just reading a study too on virality the other day and how things go viral. And very much so, it's always things that tend to be negative, but that can also be surprising. And I just find this so interesting when it comes to the ecosystems and our echo chambers too, because I notice it online. The minute that I click something, that is outside of my traditional things that I comment on or like, it immediately starts to feed me that same kind of content to say, oh, we saw that you clicked this. Are you still interested in it? And especially for me, as somebody who likes to dive into both sides of an argument, I do get content from both sides, but only because I'm curating my platform for that. I very much see how on the other side, it is just this narrow echo chamber that continues to really only involve people who you value or care about, which could be fine in some senses, but I think is very difficult when it comes to these big moments or media moments that you're trying to make an informed decision, but you only have half of a story, or you're only hearing a full story of one thing. And so I love the tallying too, that they like started tallying these things, because I think numbers can play a big role into how we see and envision how many things are being said. Dickey, I wonder if you have the same experience with the echo chambers, and then how maybe you combat it. Because I know I have some ways, but I'm curious what you do as well.
Yeah, I mean, to not have an echo chamber is very you have to get very involved. Like you were saying, you have the algorithms respond to what you look at or what you consume, and so I yeah you if you're just kind of having your uh, point of views reinforced in the media that you're consuming, then it's just going to continue, and you'll keep going further and further and further. And it's that, I mean, I know it's like really, really it's wild on YouTube how the rabbit hole can really the algorithms just move very fast, where they bring you deeper and deeper and deeper into a topic. And sometimes I'm not getting my master's in philosophy, so sometimes it's not about news, and it's just like I just see it in kind of a more innocent way of like, oh, I'm really going deep into this topic. But yeah, to what you were saying about having to kind of personally curate your own your own timeline, your news feed is it's I don't know, on one hand it's a responsibility. It's kind of and I guess that's why we do this podcast, is to sort of try to help empower people to take on that task themselves.
I could, yeah, actually, one of those points, because I was thinking of this when the two of you were talking about jumping your algorithm. The search engine you use is one of the most like influential or predictive tools of what content you're going to find. And like to Sydney's point about right versus left, like a lot of the media research, or you said partisanship, sorry, but a lot of the media research I do, for example, looks at how different news outlets, independent and corporate, are covering a particular topic. If you go to Google, I'm only going to get the corporate news. You have to type in the independent news, otherwise the algorithm filters it out. Also, another problem with Google that's interesting is they believe the most important stuff is the most recent stuff, which there's some argument about that. But if I'm researching like how the Epstein story has been covered over the last 4 weeks, I'm looking for articles that are like 3-4 weeks old. They'll only give me articles that are within the last day or two. And so you have to go to another search engine. DuckDuckGo can be helpful. Sometimes some actually AI, if you type it in a direct way and say, I want articles between this period on this topic from these outlets, some of the AI bots can do that. But point to Dickey's point, it takes a lot of work. Like you can't just rely on one engine, one search, and you have to really familiarize yourself with the algorithm and its shortcomings. So like, not that anybody probably used this, but like DeepSeek comes from a Chinese company, and they've been caught filtering out things critical of the Chinese Communist Party. So like those are things you have to know when you go in to use the algorithms. That's part of that kind of the media literacy work. Hey folks, Nolan Higdon here, interrupting real quick just to ask a favor. Can you please like, follow, comment, and subscribe to the podcast? It really helps get the show out to more people. If you also have a couple extra bucks in your pocket, please consider becoming a paid subscriber. You can go to patreon.com/Disinfo Detox, and you become a paid subscriber for as little as $5 a month. It really helps get the show to more people, allows me to bring in more people and create more content. You can find a link to that in the show description. All right, let's get back to the show. Speaking of media literacy work, I believe Dickey is about to put Sydney and I to work here.
Yeah. We are going to be doing our truth or troll segment, which is just a little detox from the from our lectures here. And so for this game, truth or troll, I'm gonna read a headline, and then Sydney and Nolan have to guess if it's real or internet garbage. And I'm gonna I'll give well, yeah. Do you? I could have you guys go head to head on a headline, or I can give you each your own headline. Do you have a preference?
Let's do head to head.
Head to head.
Good. All right.
All right. Let's see.
Sydney wants to embarrass me. Let's go.
Yeah. All right. So let's go with okay. State of Florida launches an official news app to combat misinformation. All articles have to be approved by the governor's office.
I'm going troll, yeah.
Yes, this is correct. It did make me kind of think about NewsGuard a little bit, where curation replaces the media literacy. But yeah, I was like, okay, that's what was inspiring me. All right, so good. I'm going to keep score this time. So 1 point each.
Sydney, I'll give you my reason, but I'm just curious. What was it about that headline that made you decide troll? Because I was leaning truth until one part of it.
I was leaning truth as well, because there was a recent news article about who's going to be in the really close conferences and journal updates with the president, and they're starting to curate those. But this one, I don't know. I felt like it was just too, like, the statewide. I don't know. It just felt like too much. But
I totally believed it until they said the governor's office will approve articles. I was like, no, I know the right wing. They would probably sell the state news to some independent company. They wouldn't put it in the hands of government. That was otherwise before that part of it, I was like, this must be true.
Good point. I didn't think of that. Yeah. Okay, so let's go with the Department of Education launches deepfake detective program for elementary classrooms.
I'm going true.
I'm going to go true too.
This is a troll. But I was wondering, is it like, do we want to start them young? Which I think, as we were talking in the last segment, like it's a practice media literacy. But then at the same time, are we like teaching kids to distrust everything they see before they even kind of know how to trust stuff? I was sort of ethically, I didn't know if there's an age that's too young or no, this is the world we live in, and we gotta
Yeah, we should ask. We're gonna have someone called Pete Etchells on the show too, who has this great book called Unlocked, and he actually focuses on like more elementary school. He's a parent. He has a show out called Screens Insanity. Like, I think he'd be a great person for this because I primarily focus on college level for this reason that like I am overwhelmed with the responsibility that comes with that the young ages for media consumption for sure.
I have I have the uh, same view there, Sydney. I don't really have expertise in this area, Dickie, to answer that question, but I do think it's an interesting question. I again don't have the answer, but it's provocative in a lot of ways because there's the media literacy side of me that's like, of course, teach them young, make them good skeptics. But there's the other side of me that like I would hate for a young person to conflate the message with like
Mm,
falsehoods, meaning fantasy has no value, because I think fantasy is connected to imagination, which I think is a huge part of youth and should be a huge part of adulthood, but really
yeah.
isn't. So I'd hate to cripple that. I think it's a thin line, I guess I would say.
Yeah, and I did find I was just traveling recently, and when I was in a library in Calgary, they had this amazing setup for media literacy in the library, and I felt like that was just such a great place to have it, where you could like go and experience media literacy, and you could ask librarians questions, and they had all these cool examples of like disinformation, and they were like fake and real news articles, so like what we're doing here. So I thought that that was really wonderful and something I could see being helpful for people who are younger too.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm excited to ask this question. It's a and see what other what this solution that you just mentioned, Sydney. But what other ways of tackling this? Kind of like crossroads, or there are pluses and minuses to each. Would you like to do one more headline?
Why not?
Sure.
Tie maybe. Okay, so this week, scientists burned, poked, and sliced their way through new robotic skin that can feel everything.
Oh, I don't know. Something feels true about that. I'm going true.
Well, the feel everything is catching me off. Like the robot feels everything or the people.
Yeah, I think the new robotic skin that can feel everything.
Oh, I'm gonna go troll on that one.
So this is a real headline.
Okay.
There are there's a news article that came out about this sort of synthetic electronic skin. And when I just kind of I saw a couple different headlines, and they were all worded very differently, and this one was more sensationalist for sure. And I think that that's we talk a lot about how the language of things, how the story gets presented. But no, what sort of on in the vein of ethics, I was thinking like, when I was reading the story, like will like what's the ethical framework? How do we apply that to AI if it's given sensory awareness? If AI is put inside this new robotic skin, that it sounded like the scientists were really like torturing it to see, to get some results. So I'm wondering in the not too distant future, will it be like a bill of rights for AI robot type stuff?
Yeah.
Kind of dystopian. But Nolan, congrats! You are media literate, and
Thank you.
everything that goes about being you.
Sure.
How far I've come from the first
Yeah.
segment where I blew all three. There we go. All right. Well, we are now switching over to the media literacy moment with Sydney.
Yes. Well, now that we've discovered that I'm media illiterate from this from this game, I'm gonna get into a media literacy moment. So I do want to focus my attention back onto the Who. I think I said when Dickie and I were talking about the South Park episode that I really wanted to focus on who is responsible for asking questions or making choices when people create text. So this is really a great question to think about when it comes to the South Park episode, in particular, because it shows the power that lies within not just what is said, but in who makes those choices behind the scenes. So Trey Parker and Matt Stone are, of course, some of the creators of the show, but also network executives at Paramount, legal teams that navigate risks, animators who exaggerate Trump's features, or even censors who allowed or didn't allow certain images to be shown. So each of these people really plays an influence in how we see satire, how far satire can go, and ultimately, like, what message is reached to the audience. And by asking who, we're really trying to uncover layers of decision making that can shape media narratives and analysis, and especially when it comes to politically charged episodes like this one. And I really want to think about the who here because I think it matters when it comes to accountability and function in media production. For example, in the case of South Park, it's not just the case that Parker and Stone created something provocative, it's also the case that a billion-dollar media conglomerate chose to platform it. So, despite legal entanglements that they were going on with Trump and ongoing internal censorship controversies, it's still something that they will perhaps benefit from. It's still a satire that's taking place within a politically charged landscape. And it's really important to look at this and say, how is this benefiting people? Who is it benefiting? And is it just a narrative device or is it a marketing strategy? And it's really important to think about this just because we risk mistaking spectacle for resistance, I think. And I like to be mindful of this when consuming media that has these really powerful messages because I think at the end of the day, people do benefit and it's important to recognize who that is.
Well said. I like it. I think the who is a obviously important question that's often skipped when a lot of the media analysis we got so into the story and the imagery, but we forget it all starts in the production process, right? So I think it's brilliant to ask that question.
Thanks. Yeah, it's always interesting. I do feel like it's like one of the last questions that's asked.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just sort of putting on the hat of the critic, and I'm like, how if someone were to say, well, asking all these questions about who, it makes it less fun to watch the episode. Like, how would you respond to someone who's kind of they're just like, yeah, I just want to enjoy the episode or something like that.
Yeah, I get this a lot actually. And I think that like I get the same question from people who just struggle with like media consumption in general. They're like, oh, it's so difficult to consume and then also critique this much media. It's overwhelming. And I would say, if you just want to watch the episode purely for entertainment, I would say that that's fine. But if you're going to watch the episode and then critique it, or if you're going to watch the episode and discuss its part in social commentary or you're going to create a TikTok of it online, if you're going to get into the weeds of it in any way whatsoever, I do think it's important for you to have more of a critical hat on because of the fact that it is in itself a critique. And so I think it's important to be mindful if you're going to participate in that narrative. If you're not going to participate and you're just going to watch it and then never talk about it again, that's completely different. But if you are going to discuss it, have fun, or even enraged conversations about it with people in your circle, I do think it's important to ask those kinds of questions.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I would add, we often forget this that like we don't just watch media to necessarily take in a particular message. We also watch it for pleasure. We like to be entertained, and part of entertainment is suspending disbelief, whether it's you're reading a novel or watching a TV show or a film. And I think to Sydney's point, you can do both at the same time. Like for example, I was traveling back on an airplane last week, and I watched Happy Gilmore too, which I just laughed at for 2 hours, didn't really think much about it. But afterward, my wife and I had like a deep conversation about some of the social commentary in Happy Gilmore. It wasn't in my
Mhm.
mind while watching it, but afterward we talked about it. So I think you can do both. To Sydney's point, but I think the mistake a lot of folks make is they think of everything as passive entertainment, but everything has messages. It has these power dynamics. It has these decisions. So even if you kind of suspend disbelief, don't ignore the fact that there are power dynamics and messages that really matter in all of this media, even something seemingly as trivial as like South Park episode.
Yeah.
Um, Dickey, I believe it's sidebar time.
Yes, yes. Welcome to the sidebar where we take a sharp left turn into something weird, wild, or worrying. And this week, we're going to turn the corner onto the streets of Stars Hollow. You know, the charming small town from the TV show Gilmore Girls. It's a very TV heavy episode today. Anyway, in many episodes of the Gilmore Girls, the residents of the fictional town Stars Hollow are summoned to town hall meetings at the local community center. And these aren't the typical bureaucratic snooze fests. They're chaotic and theatrical, and it's where folks crowd in to argue over the hyper local issues, such as where to put a stop sign or how to organize the next seasonal festival. And some of the characters spiral into absurd tech solutions or off topic tangents. Others argue with real passion over seemingly trivial concerns, like whether to resurrect old timey street names that no one really asked for or cares for. And these meetings get very loud, they even get messy, and they're often very inefficient at building consensus. But they're grounded in something rare: a shared sense of place, mutual recognition, the willingness to speak and to listen. And that's kind of beautiful because beneath the drama is something vital: a room full of people who share a world, disagreeing face to face. It's a comedic microcosm of direct democracy. And unfortunately, in real life, these spaces are harder to find. Earlier this year, the journalist for The Atlantic, Derek Thompson, wrote about the 21st century as the antisocial century. More of us are alone now than ever before. And even when we're together, we're apart. Our heads are down, our thumbs are scrolling on our phones, and we're chatting with AI companions instead of our neighbors. And so, as our isolation grows, the concerns of our immediate world start to feel small, and the national headlines start to feel personal. As Thompson points out, politics used to be local, but now they're focal. They're centered on whatever dominates the national spotlight, whether or not whether or not it has anything to do with our day-to-day lives. So we've traded the village for the feed, the town hall for the timeline. And in that trade, we lose the kind of face to face engagement that turns disagreement into relationship. Because offline in the village, you have to coexist. You bump into each other at the post office, you share sidewalks and grocery lines. Even if your views clash, you're still neighbors and you're still human to one another. And that's exactly what the town halls in Gilmore Girls capture. But online, it's different. Research shows that online conversations are more extreme, more negative, more hate filled. It's easier to flatten people into caricatures, to forget there's a real human on the other side of the screen. So civic engagement stops being about community and becomes something else entirely: all tribe, no village. And a lot of the media we consume and the leaders we follow thrive on this. Because if the game is getting clicks or winning elections, this strategy works. If it's to dominate the discourse and to humiliate your opponent, this strategy works. The all tribe, no village strategy treats every disagreement as a battle and every opponent as an enemy, and it teaches us to fear the other side or fixate on faraway problems. It trains us to outsource our judgment to the loudest voice in the room. But if the goal is to live well together, to solve problems, and to stay sane, then this strategy breaks everything. And that's where media literacy can come in. It's a way to change the game. Instead of searching for the right voice to follow, media literacy teaches us to pay closer attention by asking, whose story is this? What's being left out? And what does this have to do with me? It's a shift in posture from passive consumption to active discernment. It's showing up with curiosity and intention. So we may not be able to rebuild the town hall overnight, but every time we choose attention over outrage, conversation over conquest, or we pause to question the spin, we take part in the detox together. That's it.
Well done, Dickey. I like what you said there about making that comparison about the end of kind of the collective civic engagement.
Mm.
And I've written about some of these guys for years, but folks like, you go back to like Daniel Bornstein. He was warning about this in the late 20th century, that if we didn't teach civics, and he was accompanied by people like Neil Postman, who said if people are watching entertainment constantly, they're not going to be civically engaged. And then you've got the one I always liked and I recommend. It was a huge influential book on me. It was Morris Berman wrote The Twilight of American Culture in the year 2000. But you can go on and on. I mean, even Kurt Anderson wrote Fantasyland in 2017. I think there's been a lot of people warning about this, but it's interesting because I followed all those folks, and they were always treated as kind of out of touch alarmists. But now
Mhm.
you look at the current condition of the country democratically, and I mean that in terms of the system of democracy and not the Democratic Party. Um, everybody, I think, that I've seen who looks at American democracy says it's under threat, it's weakened, and you have to wonder if those folks from the past were warning us where we were going. So it sounds a lot like how you describe the current climate.
Yeah.
Well, folks, we do this every week here, and this was a very television, pop culture heavy show. And we didn't even get to Malcolm Jamal Warner and Hulk Hogan and Ozzy Osbourne, and it was still a heavy pop culture show. But we want to thank you for tuning in. We are the Media Literacy Wrecking Crew. We do this every week, and you can follow us on all the podcast platforms as well as YouTube. Please check out Patreon. There's a link in the description. We'll see y'all next time.
Hey detoxers, this is the Disinfo Detox. If you believe in media literacy for all, help us keep going. Become a paid subscriber at patreon.com/disinfodetox. There's also plenty of free ways to support. You can like, comment, follow, or share. Every little bit helps. Thanks for supporting the Disinfo Detox, where media literacy meets breaking news.